All right, now, this month we focused on youth in the Bible and started off talking about Solomon, and then we did Mary for Mother's Day, and then Brandy did a fantastic job last week with Hannah. I tell you, Brandy's sermons, I end up going home recontemplating my whole life, laying there like, okay, Lord, have I surrendered? Do I need to surrender? Where do I need to surrender? I guess I need to surrender. I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning wailing and crying, trying to be quiet, but she just does such a rich sermon that goes to the core. Now, she's a counselor, and so she likes to dig deep into that place. And so I thoroughly enjoy it because it gives us, because she teaches again next month, and so we got about 4 weeks to kind of get ourselves right again before she comes up and recounsels all of us, all right? And so, but today we're gonna talk about David. Now, and I think it's so cool we're gonna talk about David because she introduced Hannah, the mother of Samuel. And she talked about how at a young age, when Samuel was weaned, she dedicated him back to the temple, back to the Lord. And then she went out and had other children, to go on and have other children. But Samuel remained there in the temple with Eli. And the cool thing about Samuel was when Samuel was little, he was sleeping in the night. I remember my mom sharing me this story, and then I read it later on, how he was sleeping, and he heard someone call his name, Samuel. And so he got up and went to Eli and said, Eli, did you call me? And Eli said, I didn't call you, go back to bed. So he goes back to bed, he hears his name called again. So he gets up, he goes to Eli, Master, did you call me? He said, no, I didn't call you, go back to bed. He did this 3 times, and at the 3rd time, Eli realized it was God calling Samuel and said, next time, say, here am I, Lord. And so that next time, Samuel, and he said, here am I, Lord, and God began to speak to him his calling. And Samuel just remained the prophet of Israel for quite some time. So as Samuel grew up, then he came across Saul. Now, Saul, if you know the story of Saul, and most of all the analogies of Saul's life were bad. But just a summary of it, Saul, his father's donkeys were missing. He went out looking for him. Him and his servant that was with him said, there's a man of God here. We have to give him something as an offering. They found Samuel, and Samuel told him the donkeys are, back at home. But he recognized Saul as king. And Saul stood head and shoulders, was one of the most handsomest men in Israel. And so Samuel took a liking to Saul. Okay, and really fell in love with Saul, okay? But Saul had issues, and his issues got worse when the Spirit of the Lord left him. And we're going to talk about what happened here in a second, but when the Spirit of the Lord left him, it left him, and God says that I've chosen someone after my own heart, and that was David. That was David, who became the next king of Israel. So there's some cool facts we're going to talk about real quick about David. As a young man, David was a shepherd. He was anointed by Samuel to be king of Israel. Saul was king at the time, but the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul and came upon David. One of King Saul's servants described David as a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, who was skillful in playing the harp. He was a musician and a mighty man of valor and a man of war. He was prudent in speech and a handsome person, and the Lord was with him. Saul made David his armor bearer and also had David play the harp to take away the depression Saul sometimes suffered by a distressing spirit from the Lord. Among the best known events of David's youth in his slaying is the slaying of Goliath. Y'all understand David and Goliath? Y'all seen the cartoon, right? David and Goliath with the slingshot and the single stone. Samuel described David as follows: the Lord has sought for himself a man after his own heart, and the Lord has commanded him to be commander over his people. And so we're going to pick up at 1 Samuel 13. We're going to read quite a bit of this chapter, and we're going to read 1 Samuel 16. So they'll have it up above as well. So when you pick up at 1 Samuel 13, verse 1, it says, Saul was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 42 years over Israel. Which Saul reigned for 42 years, David reigned for 40 years, and Solomon reigned for 40 years. 40, 40, 40. That's where we talk about the generation numbers of 40. Okay. Now Saul chose for himself 3,000 men of Israel, of which 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash in the hill country of Bethel, while 1,000 were with Jonathan, who is his son, at Gibeah and Benjamin. But he sent away the rest of the people, each to his tent. Jonathan smote the garrison of the Philistines that was in Gibeah, and the Philistines heard of it. Then Saul blew the trumpet throughout the land, saying, "Let the Hebrews hear." All Israel heard the news that Saul had smitten the garrison of the Philistines, pretty much means he killed them all. And also that Israel had gone odious to the Philistines. The people were then summoned to Saul at Gilgal. Now the Philistines assembled to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen. Now Saul had how many people? Saul had 3,000. The Philistines had 30,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, outnumbered, okay? And people like the sand which is on the seashore in abundance. And they came up and camped at Michmash, east of Bethaven. When the men of Israel saw that they were in a strait, for the people were hard pressed, then the people hid themselves in caves, in thickets, in cliffs, in cellars, and in pits. They hid everywhere. Also, some of the Hebrews crossed the Jordan into the land of God and Gilead. But as for Saul, he was still in Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. Now he waited 7 days according to the appointed time set by Samuel, but Samuel did not come to Gilgal. Now Samuel told him, "Wait there, and when I get there, I'll make the sacrifice." Now that sacrifice was going to be the sacrifice to secure Saul's lineage as king. Which means that with these 3,000 men, if Saul would have waited for the sacrifice to be made at the appointed time by the priest, they would have been able to whip all 36,000 people plus everybody else, okay? Now, he waited 7 days according to the appointed time set by Samuel. But Samuel did not come. He didn't get there yet. And the people were scattered from him. Now the people start leaving. So Saul said, "Bring to me the burnt offering and the peace offerings." And now Saul is not a priest. So he was not allowed to do that. Even though he could do it, he was not allowed to do that. This was assigned for Samuel to do it per the specific instruction, okay? And he offered the burnt offering. As soon as he finished offering the burnt offering, as soon as he finished offering the burnt offering, which means he just couldn't wait a few more minutes. Samuel shows up right at the end. As soon as he finished offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him and to greet him. But Samuel said, "What have you done?" And Saul said, "Because I saw the people were scattering from me, and that you did not come within the appointed days, and that the Philistines were assembling at Michmash. Therefore I said, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not asked the favor of the Lord. So I forced myself. And offered the burnt offering." Samuel said to Saul, "You have acted foolishly. You have not kept the commandment of the Lord your God, which he commanded you. For now the Lord, who have established your kingdom over Israel forever, but now your kingdom shall not endure. The Lord has sought out for himself a man after his own heart, and the Lord has appointed him as ruler over his people, because you have not kept what the Lord commanded you." Now, his mistake, because he was already established. Let's catch that. God had already established him. He had already established his throne. He had already named him king forever. So it was already done, right? It was finished. It was done. It was complete. There was nothing to add to it, nothing to take away from it. His word was his bond. And God said Saul's reign will rule over Israel forever. It was done. It was finished. There was nothing else. There was no misinterpretation. There was nothing else that needed to happen. There weren't any other things that needed to take place. Saul was already in the position as king forever. It was done. It was complete. It was finished. But, remember I told you guys about your butts, right? But Saul did not rest in that completion. He didn't rest in the it was done. He didn't rest in what God had told him. He didn't just believe. See, if Saul would have thought, the Lord had already promised me that I was going to be king over Israel forever. He already said that my children are going to reign on this throne forever. God has already appointed me as king. God is my Lord. God has told me what to do. He is the one I'm going to follow. He is the one I'm going to pursue. It's already finished. It's already done. I'm going to trust him. I'm going to take his word for it. And his word is his bond. And he is bound by his word. So if God said that, I'm just going to believe it. So I don't care if there's 36,000, 30,000 horsemen and chariots and all these people showing up. God said it, so I believe it. So then if God said it, I believe it, and Samuel's supposed to come and make the sacrifice, then it don't matter what happens with the people. It don't matter what's going on with the people. It don't matter what's happening on with anybody else. It doesn't matter what the news is. It doesn't matter about the fear and trembling that's going on. God said it. I believe it. It's finished. It's done. Nothing else. Case closed. Right? But when he saw the people begin to scatter, he began to doubt what God had said. When the frustrations of the world around him begin to tremble, doubt trembled in him, and he began to not believe what God had said. So in the, okay, wait a minute. Even though God said all this stuff and this should be finished, but the effects I'm seeing around me don't display what I'm believing, I got to take matters into my own hand. I got to take matters into my own hands. I know God said it, but it ain't showed up yet. I know what God told me, but the answer is late. I got to make a decision today. I got to make a move today. I got to figure something out today. I got to make this thing got to be taken care of today. This move has to happen today. This thing needs to show up today. This thing got to take place. Does he not know that by the end of the day, I got to do this thing? I got to take care of this thing. It's 12 o'clock. It's 1 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock. By 5 o'clock, I got to make a decision. I got to send this email. I got to make this phone call. I got to pay this bill. I got to get this thing done by a certain amount of time. And God ain't showed up yet. So I got to take matters into my own hands. I know he said it and it should be done. I know what he spoke, it should be finished. I know I should be trusting in his word. I know no matter what's going on around me, what people are saying, what things are going on, I should be resting in his word. But the answer ain't showed up yet. And I got to take matters into my own hands. I got to make this thing happen. See, when we talk about David having a heart after God, it's because in parallel, Saul's heart was not after God. His heart, see, when it says a heart after God, that actually literally means my innermost being is a reflection of him. So he said it, I believe it. It's done. I don't need to take matters into my own hands. And if the Philistines rise up against me, it's not my responsibility. It's God's responsibility. See, I was listening to Brother Copeland this week. He talked about the blessing automatically cancels the curse. And as I was listening to him, and I said, man, the reality of the blessing, which you can take blessing and the word God and put them both together because they mean the same thing. The blessing on your life, when the curse shows up, it's not, we have this, can I stand up or do I got to stay seated? I'm scared to stand up because I'm like, is the camera going to freak out? So, can I, yeah, all right, beautiful. All right, here we go. So We look at the blessing as this when good happens. We equate the blessing when good stuff happens. I'm blessed. Good has happened. I'm blessed. I got a new car. I'm blessed. I got a job. I'm blessed. I got a promotion. I'm blessed. You know, we had a great weekend. I'm blessed. We had ribs yesterday. Jesus, we was blessed, right? I'm telling you, I'm blessed. We just talk about I'm blessed. I'm blessed. When good happens, that because we look at the blessing as almost an emotional well-being of good, and we feel good and we're happy and things are going good and everything's going good and everything's going great. We're blessed. We're blessed. We're blessed. But then when things go bad, we don't talk about how blessed we are. We don't still say, I'm blessed. Paul said, count it all joy when you go through trials and tribulations because the testing of your faith brings forth. But we don't say I'm blessed when I got laid off, and I'm blessed when the car broke down, and I'm blessed when I missed my exit, and I'm blessed when I ran out of gas. I'm blessed when I got up early that morning, late that morning. I'm blessed when I stubbed my toe getting into the shower. We don't say I'm blessed. I'm blessed when I forgot to pay something and they turned something off. We don't say I'm blessed when all that stuff is going on. All of a sudden, we want to say that's the devil and it's the curse and this, that, and the other. Listen, you are still blessed. It's not an emotional state of what, it's who you are. And so, and you didn't name yourself blessed. He did. See, so because he called you blessed, then the curse can't come because he called you blessed and you walk in the blessing. Now, let me dispel some, because then we go, well, Pastor Tommy, what happens when bad things happen? What happens when trouble comes? What happens when my alternator goes out? What happens when I get a flat tire? Isn't that the curse? No, that's just situations going on in your life, but you still stand in the blessing because that's who you are. And that's because of God called you blessed. And everything that goes with the word blessed is on you. And you just exist as is. Now here's where we get in trouble like Saul, because all of a sudden stuff shows up. We forget we're in the blessing and we decide to take matters into our own hands. We forget we are blessed and in the blessing. And we want to take matters into our own hands. I got to figure this out. I got to work this out. I got to make this happen. I got to I got to get out there. I got to do it. I got to do it. I got to do it. God said, no, I need somebody who's got a heart like mine. And so he talks to Samuel in chapter 16. Samuel's mourning over Saul. He's mourning over Saul. He's hurting. He's disappointed that Saul did not trust the Lord. And so when you get to chapter 16, verse 1, it says, now the Lord said to Samuel, how long will you grieve over Saul, since I've rejected him from being king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have selected a king for myself among his sons. But Samuel said, how can I go? When Saul hears of it, he will kill me. And the Lord said, take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. You shall invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. And you shall anoint for me the one whom I designated to you. So Samuel did what the Lord said and came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the city came trembling to meet him and said, do you come in peace? He said, in peace I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. He also consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they entered, he looked at Eliab and thought, surely the Lord's anointed is before me. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at the height of his stature, because I've rejected him. That was the same issue he had with Saul. His stature and his appearance. He said, no, we're not doing that again. For God sees not as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, the Lord has not chosen this one either. So then next Jesse said, okay, Shammah, pass by. And he said, the Lord has not chosen this one either. Thus Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. But Samuel said to Jesse, the Lord has not chosen these. And Samuel said to Jesse, are these all the children? Now, mind you, Jesse brought him and his sons to the sacrifice, but he didn't bring all of his sons to the sacrifice, which there's a whole another teaching on why David was considered the least of the worst of the outcast, because he wasn't even considered one of his sons. And he said, there remains yet the youngest, and behold, he's tending the sheep. Then Samuel said to Jesse, send and bring him, for we will not sit down until he comes. So he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy with beautiful eyes. He was ruddy with beautiful eyes and a handsome appearance. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon David for that day forward. And Samuel arose and went to Ramah. All right, so let me stop there. When I was reading this, how many of you know the Lord does things on purpose? Right? There's no coincidence. And so I was reading this, and later it talks about when David went out to meet his brothers, right? Because they were all lined up, and they were going to do war with the Philistines, and this is when he slayed Goliath. So he went out, and it said, and David, the son of Jesse, the Bethlehemite, went out to meet his brothers, and he met his oldest brother, and they listed his brothers' names. And they said, so he went out and he ministered. He saw his brother Eliab, and he saw his second brother Abinadab, and then he saw the third brother Shammah. And it didn't list the rest of the brothers. It only listed those 3. And then it said, and their son, and then David, the son of Jesse. And so since they didn't list the rest of the names, I said, okay, Lord, there's got to be a meaning to this. So when you look up the name Eliab, it means God is Father. It means God is Father. When you look up the second son, Abinadab, it means my father is noble. So when you have God is Father and my father is noble, when you get to the third son, Shammah, it says that his name means to make them or to make the desolate. So you got God is Father, my Father is noble, and makes them that are desolate. But David means my beloved. So when you put those names together every single time, it's mentioned 3 times. It's mentioned those 3 names: Eliab, Abinadab, Shammah, David. Eliab, Abinadab, Shammah, David. Eliab, Abinadab, Shammah, David. It means God is Father. My Father is noble. He makes them that are desolate my beloved. Did you go ahead and put that up there so they can see that? See, when it written right in there in the transition into David having the heartbeat of God, and to him saying, I found somebody who has my heart. My DNA is in him. Everything I have is inside of him. And so in the sequence, you see that my God is Father. My God is noble. He makes them that are desolate my beloved. My God is Father. My Father is noble. He makes those that are desolate my beloved. And then in this transition to David. Now, David had issues. He had a lot of issues. But David never lost his love for God. He never lost it. David had a man killed for his wife. David allowed one of his daughters to be raped by one of his sons and did nothing about it. There were so many things that went on. God told David, don't count the people. David counted the people. But he never lost his heart for God and never lost his love for his word. I'll end with this. Psalms 1 has been one of the lifelong chapters. And it's the first psalm. Blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, or stand in the way of sinners, or sit at the seat with those who mockers. But he delights in the law of the Lord. And in this law, he meditates both day and night. And he would be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that bring forth its fruit in its due season, whose leaves never wither, or whatever he puts his hands to prospers. The first psalm he wrote was that. That is the heartbeat of David. So as we're closing, we cannot forget the finished works of Jesus. When he said it's done, it's done. The blessing is on you, and it's done. It's done. Now, we get in trouble by taking matters in our own hands. When we say we need to figure this thing out, we got to do it. We got to handle it. We got to make it happen. We got to take care of this. It's what we got to do. And that's where we get in trouble. Because we step out of the blessing and literally get out from underneath that umbrella, and we're subject to whatever happens. Now, God is so merciful. He loves us so much that he'll accept us back. He'll accept us back. When we realize who he is, we come a-running, just like Super Dude. We come a-running. And sometimes running so fast, we'll just fall. And God is so gracious, he'll pick us up and hold us and hug us. And it's just you and God. Let's make sure we're back in that place. That we're not we're not stepping out on our own. Here's how we know we're trying to do it ourselves. You're frustrated. Here's how you know you're trying to do it yourself. You've got anguish. You got fear, worry, and concern. That's how you know you're trying to do it with your own hands. Because when it's in God's hands, you rest, you sleep, you don't worry about it, you don't pick it up, you leave it in his hands. Remember I told y'all the difference between faith and hope? Yeah, a lot of hope is in the I got to make this happen. Faith is in this is in God's hands. I'm just going to trust him. Let's make sure we're in that place. Let's not have things that we're trying to do on our own. The second thing is, Brandy talked about surrender last week. And surrender, on one hand, we can look at it as, Lord, I give up. Right? I give in, I give up. I surrender. And she eloquently let us know that surrender is not a loss of freedom. Okay? It's actually freeing to surrender. And we can go, Lord, I give up and I give it into your hands. I do whatever you call me to do, and I do whatever you lead me to do. Okay? Sometimes the things that you're putting your hand to, that you're trying to say, Lord, I surrender, is him saying, no, just surrender to what you're doing. Keep moving with what you're doing. Whatever you put your hands to is going to prosper. And I've met a lot of believers that once you say, okay, you need to surrender, they want to stop doing everything. And I'm like, no, don't stop doing everything. Keep doing what you're doing. God's going to bless what you're doing. He's going to bless the work of your hands. And if he doesn't like what you're doing, he's going to tell you to stop doing it. And he'll move you to the next place. Surrender to what God is doing. Surrender. So this week, it's a holiday week, and we get caught up in so many other things. But God really wants to make sure that he massages our heart condition. Look over your life this week. Just look over your life. If there's areas that you have not submitted to the finished work of the cross, or you have not just given it to God, You have not just said, Lord, it's all about you. It's not about me. If there's areas that you said, okay, I've had to make stuff happen, even in your heart. You ain't did anything, but you said it. You may not have done anything, but you're already figuring it out. You may not have, but you're already trying to figure it out. You're already planning your tactical next steps. Let's get rid of that blueprint and that map that you've written out. Just throw it away. Just throw it away. Lord, I'm trusting you. Everything I'm doing, I'm trusting you. If there's something I'm doing that you don't want me doing, I'm trusting that you're going to lead my course. But Lord, I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you. If we can abandon ourselves and trust his word, imagine where our life would be. Imagine where our life would be. And I'll close 3 times. This is my third close. It's my third close. I'm right on target, guys. Right on time, right on target. Many of us, we get excited about our positions of where we are and go, thank God we're so blessed because we got here. But we haven't abandoned ourselves completely to where we could be. Does that make sense? We're excited because we got here. And we can, be happy we're here. But because we haven't abandoned ourselves completely to God, we're not where we could be. We're not where we could be. And that's the understanding. If there's still wonder or angst in your heart to being able to go, I'm going to give it and trust in him, then you got to let that go so you can get where you need to get. Okay? It's good. We got to let that go so we get to where we need to get. There's so much more candy in the pail for us to be picking 2 little pieces and trying to make it last, trying to budget it out. We're just going to be good stewards with the little we got instead of being a child of God in his abundance. Let's leave it there. Father, I thank you for all those analogies, Lord, and I thank you that we are surrendering to you. Father, I thank you that we're giving it all over to you. Paul and Betsy, come on up, please. That we're giving it all over to you, Lord. If there are places in our heart that we put our hands to, whatever area, Lord, that we've said, we got to make it happen. I got to take matters into my own hands. I've got to do it. I've got to plan it. I got to make it last. I got to stretch it out. I got to budget it. I got to do whatever the case may be, Lord. Instead of going, God, we just going to trust in your word and let you do your thing and just enjoy being a child of God. Just enjoy that, Lord. If we haven't done that, Father, forgive us first. We repent, for we did not know. We didn't understand. We didn't comprehend it. So we repent. But Father, those areas, Lord, let us pull back and let us surrender to you. Let us continue to do what we're called to do and trust that you're going to lead us and direct us, Lord. In your son's name.